How are you? Still. Okay, we're up to Chavez Amar Aleph and Chazer from Amar Rava. Afiliyesh Bein Zelazaz. We're going to start from, and then we'll start the next Gemara very soon. I heard there's a lot of Chazaras on the chat. Supposedly. Let's basically says yeah, there's a lot of Chazaras there. He says it's a lot of dons. Came later. Oh, it's get picked up at the end. Amar Rava. Rava said, we're going to learn that Rava argued on the bias. It's more like a Rava Amar. Rava's talking and saying, Afilu yesh bein zel lezeh shloisha tvachim nami. Even if there are 3 tvachim, also it's going to be good. It doesn't have to be within 3 tvachim. Why? He explains. Lo yamaron. They never said it's going to be pasul. The sukkah is not going to be good all the time. They never said it all the time. If there's more than 3 tvachim, it's going to be a problem. Ella, rather, where do they say it's going to be a problem? She'ein begagai tefach. If it doesn't have in its roof, which is the upper slats, if the upper slats don't have a tefach, that's when, if you're above 3 tvachim, it's going to be pasul. Avo yesh begagai tefach. But if the slats on top, if the reeds on top are a tefach, and then they have a shame of chashivas, because an oil generally is a tefach, once they have that chashivas, so then the sukkah is going to be kshera, it's kosher. Why? What is the help if there's a tefach there? Damrinan, because we say a famous halach l'meishem misinai, chavoit rami. Chavoit means throw it down, place it down. Rami means to place. Chavoit rami, down and place. So when you put the slats down, kilu, all of them fall into place, and therefore you have a full-fledged roof as your sukkah. And this is really what we're up to yesterday. We started a little bit, we're going to just start it again. Omar Rava, says Rava, Mino aminola. From where do I get this from? Where do I say this from? Dechi isbe tefach, that only when the slats, when the reeds on top are a tefach, amrinan chavoit rami, that we say chavoit, throw it down, rami, and place it. Dechi lesbe, and if you don't have them at tefach, lo amrinan, we do not say chavoit rami, you can throw it down and place each slat in between the gaps. Where do I get this from? There has to be a tefach, and if you don't, it's no good. Here's his makar d'tanan, a mishnah. It's a mishnah always. It's not hard. Always seems scary, but it's not. It's a very simple cheshbon. So don't get nervous. Koires habayis v'aliyah. You have beams of a bias and beams of an aliyah. So he says a 2-story home, unfinished roofs. Both roofs, the roofs of the bias, the first floor, and the roofs of the second floor are unfinished. You know what? It's actually worth it. I'm not joking. The pictures read the Mishnah. Have all the words. They can read it from the back. Let's just go to the back. I think it's much better. On page Lamed in the pictures, the mamish read out for you every case of this brisa, of this Mishnah. Page Lamed, picture Chav Gimel. So I'm going to read the words on the caption under the picture. Koires habayis v'aliyah. You have these beams of the bias, the lower floor, and the beams of the aliyah, she'ein alehen ma'aziva, they do not have any plaster, they're not finished. So even though it says they don't have plaster, they don't either have boards going across. It's unfinished in 2 ways. But once I tell you that there's no plaster, it means they don't have either planks going widthwise. They just have these long beams going across the roof. V'hei mechuvanis, and both the planks of the upper floor and the lower floor are exactly aligned with each other, exact. So the halacha is, tuma tachas achas me'en, if you have tuma underneath one of them, and we're referring to the lowest floor, if you see that yellow tuma, they don't show you a piece of dead flesh, they just show you a yellow sign saying tuma. That is where the tuma is. If you have tuma underneath that plank of wood, tachteha tame, anything under that plank is going to be tame. Just there. The tumah can't spread anywhere else. But anywhere under that plank, the entire length of that plank, that piece, whoever's there, the kli, a person, is going to be tameh. If you see the kli's in front of the tumah, and it's tameh, because it's an oil, it's a tefach wide, and therefore the tumah spreads throughout the beam. But it has nowhere to travel beyond there. That's why to the sides, it doesn't go. And if you look at the top, on top of the beam of the first floor, it says tahar, because it's also, as an oil, it's chaitzitz. It's an interposition that the tumah cannot go up. So that is the first case. Now we jump to picture Chav Dal to the left. Beinach tachtoina lo yoina. Let's say the tuma is between the upper floor and the lower floor. So here you have the yellow tuma. It's on there on that second plank in the middle. The halacha is anything between the two planks is tameh, and therefore you see that kli is tameh. But any kli on the floor is tahar, and any kli on top of the top roof is tahar. Because it's an oil with its own covering, an own covering on the bottom, it's completely locked in the tumah just along the length of that beam. We move on to the next page, page Lamed Aleph, top right. Let's say the tumah's al gabe ha'alyona. Let's say the tumah is all the way on top. We got that yellow tumah top plank. The halacha is kinegda ad l'rakia tameh. Opposite it, ad l'rakia, up to Shemayim, up to the skies is tameh. Because tumah travels, it never stops. It goes up. Unless something blocks it, tumah goes all the way up. And therefore, the kli, which is actually suspended in midair, I think. It is. They don't show it so well. That tumah is right underneath, and the kli's on top is tameh, but the kli underneath is going to be tahar. So that's very, very simple. Every plank is its own oil, and therefore only what's under the plank becomes tameh. Nothing else in the house is going to become tameh. Comes along the next case, picture chavav. Let's say hayu hel yonis kibein hatachtoinos. Let's say the upper beams are like the space. Kibein means like between the lower ones. The upper planks are right in between the gaps of the lower ones. They're not aligned. The exact opposite. They're aligned perfectly in the gaps. The upper beams, underneath that's a gap. Such a case, tachas tumah tachtein, when there's a tumah underneath them, you see the yellow tumah? Everything on the lower floor, tachas kulan tameh. Everything there is tameh. Even though the beams are spread apart from each other, so have the tumah traveling on the first floor of the house, the answer is going to be, which we'll see in a second, is because you lower all those top planks down, and it's as if the first floor is totally roofed, called chavoit rami. This is it right here.
So,
Yeah.
why does it show a picture of the tar on top? It could be also on the bottom.
The bottom, all the kelim on the bottom are tameh.
No.
In the middle?
Yeah, they're supposed to be.
Okay, so Shabsi's asking a bomb question. Shabsi's asking, why don't we talk about that in between should become tameh as well? Now, I personally do not understand how between them can become tameh, and Rashi is unclear, but some Rishonim do want to say that tumah would travel over there as well. I don't understand, because once you bring down the planks, it should be totally sealed.
So we don't say we bring them up.
So maybe that could be one of the answers. That the same good achas, there's like a good asik, and maybe it could go up.
Because the whole thing is one big island now.
Right. So to me, it seems like the between shouldn't work because you bring down all the planks down, and therefore it's totally sealed on the bottom. But in the middle, there's nothing sealing it from the top because you just have open gaps. And what's sealing that? Unless you talk a say that it could go up. But the Gemara doesn't mention that. So it's a good question. What we're going to learn, just to make it simple, is that only the lower floor can anything become tameh because all the planks come down and sink into the gaps, and then the bottom floor is totally roofed, totally good to go. Comes totally roofed. His question is: let's say the tumah is on the second floor in the middle, anywhere in the middle.
Yeah, but the beams are coming down, so there's nothing above.
Right. So that's the pashas. That's the
Same way
pashas.
that would work for schach, right? It works
Yeah.
for schach. So
Yeah.
if we're being done in schach, the
Yeah.
same way that worked for schach, right? That the whole thing would be considered schach.
Right.
The whole thing should be considered tameh.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. That's why I kept it simple. But there are Rishonim that do discuss that potentially the whole thing is tameh. It's a very good question. We're going to keep it simple, just the bottom floor. Moving on to picture Chav Zayin. Let's say the tumah in this alternating beam case. We're still continuing on this case. Al gaben, if the tumah is all the way on the top, then that's also pretty simple. Connected al rikia tameh. Anything opposite up to the sky is tameh, but anything around the whole house is going to be tahar because there's no oil, there's nothing getting the tumah to transfer around over there. We're going to look at picture Chav Ches soon. So just going back to the words of the Mishnah, we can read it now and understand it. Amar rava, says Rava, Menoah minallah, where did I get it from? Dichi ispe tefach, that when there is a tefach, amrin and chavait rami, that we say throw it down and place the beams down. Dichi lespe, and when you don't have it, Lo yamin and chavay rami. You do not say bring it down. It's now we learned in the mission always. Koyres abayis v'aliyah. You have the beams of the first floor and the second floor. She'en aleim aziva, that do not have plaster on them. V'heim mechuvanis, and they're aligned. They're totally aligned. The halacha is like this: Tuma tachas achas mehen. If there's tuma underneath one of the lower beams on the first floor, tachtel tame. Any kli underneath that beam is going to be tame. If the tuma is beina tachtoina le'olyayna, if the tuma is between the lower floor and the lower beams and the upper beams, then the halach is beinehen tame. Anything between them is tame. Right on that plank is going to be tame. Al gabe ha'olyayna, if the tuma is on the top on the roof, then kinegda opposite. Adler ki up to the sky, tame is going to be tame. Those are the three cases when the beams are fully aligned. Says the Mishnah and continues. Hayu ha'olyaynis kebein atachtonis. Let's say this interesting case where the upper slats are right exactly between the middle slats below. They're opposite the gaps between the lower slats. Tuma tachtein, so the rule is when the tuma is all the way on the first floor, all the way on the bottom, tachas kulan tame. Now the entire bottom floor becomes tame. Al gabein, if the tuma is all the way on the top of the house on the roof, then kinegda ad l'rikia tame, only opposite it, up to the sky is going to be tame. That is the Mishnah. Okay? Here's where Rava gets his raya from. Vitani Allah, a brisa was said to elaborate on this Mishnah. Bamed var mamur, and this is the Lashon HaBraisa. Bamed var mamur, when were these words said? This whole Mishnah. When does this Mishnah always make sense? Bizman sheyesh behen tefach, only when the beams are each a tefach. Ubeinehen peser tefach, and between each beam is an open space of a tefach. That's when all these rules apply. When the beams are a tefach, they're chashiv, they're like oils, and there's gaps that you can actually pretend and bring them down into. There's gaps of a tefach in between. But if there aren't gaps in between that are a tefach, and that means that the beams on top are not, you have to stick this in. This is the part you have to stick in. It's not so clear, these words. If the gaps between are not a tefach, so then that means that the upper slats are not either a tefach, because usually the building corresponds, whatever the bottom beams are, the upper beams are. They're not a tefach. The halacha is tuma tachas achas, man, there's a tuma underneath one of the on the lower floor, underneath one of the beams, tachteha tame. So then only underneath it's going to be tame. Beinei and valgabe and tar, but everything around the house, between them and above them, is going to be tar. Once you don't have that tefach, you don't have the chavait rami anymore. So then only exactly what's under this area is going to be tame, but the gaps, you don't have the gaps between the tefach, it's not going to be able to say chavay rami spread throughout the house. So if the beams are a tefach, but you don't have gaps of a tefach, so then you're not going to have the tumah to be able to spread, and therefore it's going to be tar. What do we see from this? Alma. Alma means what comes out, we see from here. Ki ispe tefach, when you have a tefach, amrin and chavay rami, this is Rava's right here. We say, bring it down. The chiles be'tefach, but we don't have a tefach, lo yamrin and chavei rami. We don't say, bring it down, shma mino. We learn that from this. We learn from that. The Mishnah is basically saying that this rule that happens by Tumah, that you could take these upper beams and bring it down and look as if the whole bottom floor is covered, is only if they're a tefach and you have gaps that have a space to go into that are a tefach. If you don't have that, then you don't have this whole trick of chavei rami. So Rava says, I learned from here that only when you have a tefach, so are you going to do that? So coming back to the sukkah hamiduvlelas, that sukkah miduvlelas, which is alternating schach, up, down, the halach is, even if the upper reeds are higher than 3 tvachim, as long as they are a tefach, and beneath them they have a place to go that's a tefach, they could come down and be a full schach that works to have a kosher sukkah. Yeah. Oh, so we discussed, it's a very good question. Right, someone asked us yesterday. The pashtus is that in order for the upper ones to be able to come down into that space, they have to have the amount of a tefach as well to be able to come down.
Right,
so
if it comes up and they're a little wider.
Right, so it could be it is, but to make it simple, it has to cover the gap, and therefore it can easily go down. If it's a drop more, it could be it's good. I think there are Rishonim that talk about this. And if it's a drop less, it also still might be good. But to make it simple, everything corresponds in this house. So whatever if the gaps and the upper beams are tefach, they can come down and you have a nice place to go and it works. If they're a little bit more or less, it's a discussion. It's a discussion. So Rava is a raya that it has to be a tefach to be able to say chavay rami, and great raya from always. No? Good raya. Anyone have any questions on the raya?
The Tani Allah is who?
The Tani Allah is a brisa. It was taught on it, a brisa on elaboration of the Mishnah. Another rule in general is a klal, but not something that's always like this. Whenever the Gemara is telling you a Mishnah, there's always two nuns. Like Tnan is a Mishnah, and Masnisin is a Mishnah. Two nuns. Anything that's one nun is a brisa. The Tanya, the Tani. A lot of times, Masnisa is a brisa. Yeah.
He's bringing a raya from not even the Mishnah. He's bringing it from a
He's bringing a raya from a brisa, correct? Yeah. He's raya from a brisa on elaboration from the Mishnah.
And we're fine with that.
Yeah. Raya from a brisa is great. Yeah.
Are we not saying Chavay Rami, or maybe it's just the fact that you already have love it?
So this is higher than each one is a B'ser Teva?
Space is less than a tefach, it's loveless, so there's no room for Chavay Rami.
Okay, so this is a bomb kasha that a few guys asked yesterday also, by the way. Some guy, non-shir, by Charusas, and I'm happy you brought it up because I forgot. I want to talk about this. He's asking a good question. If every space is a tefach in between, so we have a concept called lava. And lava means anything less than 3 tefachim is assumed to be closed. So take away the top slats. I don't care. Get rid of them. There's nothing on top. In general, the tumah underneath should be totally roofed because you have lava. So it seems to be that officially is closed up, but in terms of actually considering it to be an oil for tumah, and also for sukkah, for schach, it has to be that there is the ability, technically, that you have some sort of roof. It could be up high. But even though this is also lachol meshim Sinai, and love is also lachol meshim Sinai, to consider it closed, it works for certain things, but not to actually say that tumah could transfer throughout the house, or to say that I now have a schach that I have shaved. It doesn't seem like it would help in such a case. It needs to still have officially that there is a piece of wood up above that could come down to be able to transfer around.
Sukkah also?
Sukkah also, as well. The same thing with the schach. What do I need those upper reeds for? Just have the alternating reeds on the first row, and they're only tefach in between. The answer is, you're right, I'd love it you have it, but to get the shame sukkah of a roof for schach, you have to have that officially there is schach up above that could come down, and it won't work just for love it itself. Why exactly it's like that? I don't really have the lumdus exactly, but that seems to be the rule.
Oh, you need shade.
What? You don't technically need shade because here the sun's coming through the cracks also. So it's more in din, but even in din, it has to be that there is a roof that potentially could come down.
We're not imagining shade when they're opposite. When you look up, there's shade.
Right.
But over here, we can't look up and say there's a space there, but we're pretending that there's shade.
We're pretending, but we can't pretend too much. If we're pretending, we can't pretend too much. It has to be that we could consider it lower down and have the full roof.
Does it ever apply by schach, or just...
Love it could apply for schach, but not to help you for more tzel than more chama. If you technically had a full schach and with tons of love is going on, and at the end of the day there was more sun than shade, it would not be a good
What if the
sukkah.
plates are 2 tefachim and the space is less than a tefach?
If it ended up being that there was more sun than shade in that sukkah, it wouldn't be a good sukkah, even though I say, look, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
Love it extends the schach. It doesn't make the schach kosher. When you have to have schach there, let's say you have the very classic case is you have the end of the wall and you want to extend the schach to the end.
Right.
So you have schach there, so it's extending the schach. It's not going to create the schach.
You're saying, like a lumdus says that. It can't create a schach, but it can help you extend or like look at it like it's closed up, but not to give you like what schach officially does. So something you're saying.
Right.
Can't like pretend to be schach. It could just like take away problems more. I
I
think it's
love
better.
it by us, regular stuff, though, it's an actual wall.
Yeah.
Why would this be different?
So it could be for certain things, like a wall. I know it sounds crazy, but for certain wall things you could. But to create schach, I don't know why it's like that. To create schach and to create certain other halachic, other halachic ideas or halachic chalais, you need more officially to make it happen. You can't just look at like love it, even though you're right, from the chitza works these things. So for Chavay Rami, that works for us. Because technically it's up there, it just has to be brought down, but it's there.
Some over here because Chamas room is also, that's the reason why.
By Sukkah.
Yeah, if we would have more tail than Chaim, it would be perfect.
Yeah, that's because you're good anyways. You're not relying on the Loved. You're not relying on the Loved for that.
It'll spread apart further.
That's what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying over here, that's the part, not because you're not relying on the here, because you have more Chaim. The Chiddush is that in the case of the up and down, even though it's more Chaim themselves, the love works.
Not the Loved. The
What? Yeah.
not the Loved. The Chavay Rami. Oh, higher than 3.
If it's 3.
They're higher than 3 at Chavay Rami.
If it's 3.
Lower than 3, they have the Loved, but the Loved's on a piece of wood coming down and creating the schach.
Right. Because you have this Chaim there.
Right, because you have the schach there. But you can't use the sideways ones to create only the top one, there's no schach. You still have more shade than sun? You don't, but at the end of the day, you technically in a way have it. We'll stop over here. We'll stop over here by Yosef Rav Kahana. It's a good place to stop anyways. Yeah. Not only because of the time. I mean, there's something there in the world that could give you a roof. So using this halachic process